My fellow Madridistas, welcome back to the channel. Let's talk about the upcoming match against Valencia. I want to give you guys what I think the lineup will probably look like. And unfortunately, the big story of this match, sadly, is Vini returning to Mestalla, the stadium where he was subjected to disgraceful insults and chants and just horrific scenes. But sadly, that is the story of the match. But let me give you my thoughts on the lineup and some other details. All right, let's get started. All right, welcome back, Madridistas. Let's talk about the Valencia match. First of all, let me show you where Valencia is this year. They're sort of in ninth position, not an unusual place for them to be. The only thing I would say that a lot of times playing away from home, especially against teams that are deeply anti-Madridista like Valencia is that these teams come out with a knife, a dagger in their mouth. I mean that some of these teams, the highlight of their year, they can even save the year just by beating Real Madrid at home. This is how bad the animosity is. So they're in ninth position, having a sort of mediocre year, but at the end of the day, they're going to come out with an intensity that really, only Real Madrid seems to bring out in other opponents. But we'll talk about the Vini situation in a minute, but let me talk about the lineup. This is what I think it'll look like. There aren't too many loose ends here. I think on the right, I think he'll probably start with Carvajal. He didn't play the last match. I think he's rested. We're very conscious of sort of the upcoming obligations. The calendar gets tighter, but I think if you rested Carvajal, I mean, you never know. Ancelotti could bring out Lucas Vázquez, but I think, given the fact that Carvajal is rested, I would expect to see him on the right back. I think in the middle, you don't really have much choice. I think you're going to go with Rudiger and Nacho. I think that's kind of the most natural thing to do at this stage. Also because I think Tchouaméni is going to be used in the midfield. And then, on the left, I would expect to see Mendy. Now, Ancelotti may want to give Fran Garcia minutes. He has a lot of energy, but I just don't think he's as good a defender as Mendy. But, my bet, at least for now, is Carvajal, Rudiger, Nacho, and Mendy on the left. Now, in the midfield, I think you're definitely going to see, this would be my bet, Tchouaméni and Camavinga playing in those kind of, pivotal positions with Toni Kroos in there as well. The only real kind of question is I'm a little bit worried about Valverde. Valverde, he's so good and he's just so consistent, but he's been playing every single minute. I mean, Valverde really is the only player that hasn't had any sort of rest. He hasn't gotten injured, knock on wood. He hasn't had, yellow card problems. So, I mean, my worry is that, Valverde has been accumulating so many minutes coming up to this match, and knowing what we have ahead of us, would it make sense to rest him? I mean, I think it's possible. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. I'm expecting Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Kroos, probably Valverde, but you never know. I mean, he could throw a little surprise at us and maybe give Arda Güler minutes, but that's kind of where my head is. Now, regarding Bellingham, as of this moment, it's unsure whether he's, gonna be on the bench or not. I think it would be very, very risky to give him any minutes at all. I mean, these kind of injuries, kind of an ankle sprain, ankle tear, you don't want to relapse because we know what's coming. We have plenty of talent to sort of fill in. And I think it would be a mistake to risk it. So Jude, may or may not be on the bench, but I doubt very much that he would get any minutes. I certainly would have advised against it. And then in terms of up front, I mean, I think it's going to have to be Vini and Rodrigo because Joselu can't play. He's still injured. So I doubt very much that you're going to have a sort of, any version of a 4-3-3. I think it's going to be a 4-4-2 with Vini and Rodrigo in the front. So that's my sort of best educated guess in terms of the lineup. Now, unfortunately, the story of this match, sadly is, and it's what's all over the press here. That's all anyone is talking about is Vini returning to Valencia, which was, of all the stadiums where he's been sort of insulted, etc., Valencia really took the cake last year, and there doesn't seem to be any proactive effort on the part of Valencia to sort of minimize the tension level here. That there hasn't been any kind of official statement. There was no real proper punishment for the people last year that clearly on camera were insulting Vini. I mean, it's the whole situation's very disappointing, and I'm afraid that is going to be the story of the match. Now, my concern, listen, we're all on Vini's side, and we know that he's right, and none of this should be happening. But, it is a concern to me that Vini could lose concentration. He's a player that does sometimes lose his temper, or he kind of gets excessively involved and sort of back and forth and little fracas here and there. And I'm a little bit worried that if the tension level gets very, very high, I don't want to see him in a vulnerable situation. If he gets a yellow card, we certainly don't want to risk the second one. And I also don't want him to lose concentration. I mean, Vini, as wonderful as he is a young player, and he's still kind of learning to be mature on the pitch and to handle these situations a little better. So, the big story will be, how tense and how awful will the atmosphere be? How will Vini react to it? But sadly, that's where the focus is ahead of this match. But anyway, those are my thoughts in terms of lineup and kind of where all the attention is. I'll be sure to give you guys a post-match analysis, but I wanted to share my thoughts ahead of the match, okay? Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video. And as always, a la Madrid.